Welcome back. We're talking about the fiscal cliff and trying to figure out what both sides are going to have to give up to get to a deal. There's been a lot of talk about tax loopholes, and rather than raising taxes, maybe you cut some of these loopholes and you can save some money there. But if you take the 10 biggest tax loopholes and you cut them all, you save $834 billion a year. That's not chump change. 76% of this year's deficit. It's 5% of the total national debt. But once you get into the details of what those loopholes are, that may be where the difficulty comes in. Take a look at some of these. These are very popular, and I suspect most people watching tonight would not want to see these loopholes go away. The deduction for their health insurance at work, or their pension benefits, or their mortgage interest, or their Medicare benefits, or capital gains cuts, or the earned income tax credit. State and local taxes, you get to take that off your federal taxes. Gifts and inheritances, charitable donations, and the cafeteria-style health benefits. For all the talk about loopholes, it doesn't seem like there's enough money or anywhere near enough support to get rid of those loopholes. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Cutting loopholes, especially that service the middle-income families and lower middle income, is the same ghost is waste, fraud, and abuse. Whenever you're trying to clean up a program, it's a minuscule amount, and these service middle-income families and poor and near-poor families. It's absolutely not practical.
Not only that, Andrew, if we're to believe that President Obama has any type of mandate, if we're to believe that, why would he waste it on just deductions? I mean, he ran on a platform of tax increase for the wealthy, and he's indicated he's going to stick by that, and deductions won't cut it.
But that's what we keep hearing about tax rates versus tax revenues. One of the ways you increase the revenues is by eliminating those loopholes. Even if you do that only on the top end, Congressman, you're talking about a drop in the bucket then.
Well, you're not, depending on what you include in there. And look, we would miss we would be wrong to miss an opportunity to simplify the code this go around. And that's right. I mean, look, the mortgage interest tax deduction for middle income families, politically that is probably not, whatever people say, on the table. Philanthropic contributions being deductible for people. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really hard to talk about. But we can't miss the opportunity to simplify the code and do what the economists tell us we need to do, which is broaden the base and simplify it. So if it's just rates, that'll be, I think, an unfortunate thing. And by the way, I mean, you didn't mention it, but if you just move top rates, some of the very wealthiest people in this country are actually not going to see their taxes go up all that much, because they are actually paying mainly dividends and interest and capital gains. We need to have a discussion in this country, for example, about why a guy as wealthy as Mitt Romney pays a 13% tax rate. And the answer to that question is, in addition to all the loopholes and whatnot, is that he's paying mostly capital gains. And how do we feel about people who are making capital gains and interest and dividends paying a lot lower rate than folks who are actually working hard for a living?
And that was done under the Clinton administration, and it was good because it got more people involved and it got more people investing. The problem is that I think we're at times now where they should be paying a little bit more. I completely agree with you, Congressman. But there's also another component to that cap gains tax, is that there's almost a 3.5% cap gains additional tax through Obamacare that are going to be hitting everybody that has 401ks or that have stocks or dividends that they're going to be cashing out for their retirement. So those are other issues, as well as the alternative minimum tax, which is going to hurt middle-class families.
So you think there's enough wiggle room in the Republican Party for either to be okay with either a tax increase on the top end or an increase in tax revenue on the...
Well, let's understand one thing. The Warren Buffetts of the world and Mitt Romney's right, they're going to be fine. Where I disagree is that the 250 threshold. I think Nancy Pelosi, and Michael, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I also believe Senator Schumer talked about, let's start at the 1 million mark, because you have to understand that there are small businesses, and you look up and down the East Coast and actually everywhere in the country, these are small businesses. So they're not generating $250,000
making $200,000 a year and living in New York City or in Boston or in San Francisco are still stretched thin. You could have a busy contractor married to a tier 1 teacher in Long Island making at least $170,000, and they're struggling. So the numbers need to be lifted.
And we need to be honest, and I should not be the one at the table saying this, but we need to be honest about the fact that the answer to every problem is not tax the rich more. There's not enough money there. Now, I just ran a campaign on the proposition that the wealthy should do their fair share, that they should contribute to this. But, unfortunately, this is not a problem as simple as making the wealthy pay more.
Is there enough... the Democrats in your caucus, can they swallow cuts to entitlements? Can they swallow Social Security and Medicare cuts? They're not really part of the fiscal cliff. They're part of the overall budget issues that the country's going through right
And
now.
by the way, they're the critical ones. Look, in the long run, the challenge we face fiscally in this country has an awful lot more to do with the unfunded benefits that we've promised people in the Medicare system. When I say people, I'm talking about kids who are toddlers today. What we've promised them through both Medicare and Social Security, that's where the action is. And to answer your question, it depends on what we mean when we say cuts. If you're going to say we're going to take seniors today who are relying on Medicare and Social Security and we're going to change the deal for the worse on them, no, we're not going to accept that. And I don't think we should. If the deal is that you're going to ask poorer seniors, to pay up a lot more, that's not the deal here. What you can do is you can say to my generation of people, you can say programs are going to look a little different. And you can say to the affluent part of that generation, programs are going to look a little different for you 20, 30 years from now than they look today. That's where the discussion has to be.
Also what you could do at the state level. If New York State were to implement the stock transfer tax, it would bring $10 billion to New York City. It's a lot of money. Changing the tax rates on carried interest. There are ways to play with the numbers in ways that actually produce billions of dollars at the state level, and then you're obviating the need for a lot of this federal money.
42 days to go. Something tells me this is going to come up every single day between now and New Year's. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we go back to the Sandy-ravaged areas across our region. Expenses from the damage are piling up. Who is going to handle the bill? That's next. Stay with us.